Hello and welcome to Adventures in Visibility. Today I have two really special guests that I'm going to be introducing to you in a moment. And we are going to be talking about how to boost your visibility in 2015. I didn't want to do a prediction show. Everybody does prediction shows, and I don't think you can really predict what's going to happen and come down the pike, because in our industry, social marketing, it changes so fast. Who knows what's going to be happening in 2 months or even next week. So instead, my guests, Stephan Hovnanian and Laurie Laizure, are going to talk with us today about what you need to do to really focus on getting more visibility, and why you need more visibility, and how you can really be strategic about it. Both are very strategic thinkers, and that's why I wanted to have them on the show. Stephan has been a previous guest, and he's one of my favorite guys, so I wanted to get him back on before the end of the year. And Laurie's a new friend who was introduced to me by Stephan. He said, you got to get Laurie on the show too. So when Stephan speaks, I listen. So,
well, everything I learned from you. So,
oh, please.
It's coming full circle.
Okay, so I am going to dispense with the bios, because you can see them on the event page and follow all their links and learn a lot more about them if you don't happen to know these two people. But now what we're going to do is just really jump in, because we got a lot to talk about. We were having quite a discussion in the green room before we started. And so I want to just get it going. Is that okay with you guys?
Yeah, sure.
Fire away.
Okay. So welcome, Laurie. Welcome, Stephan. Let's roll. So, I think probably where we should start is why people should even care about their visibility online. Why should an entrepreneur or business owner, whether they're online or offline, why should they be paying attention to it?
Well, we actually just had this discussion in a private group I belong to, and we were talking about Google Local. And so many of I own the community for interior designers, and so many of my interior design friends haven't signed up for Google Local. And we're just saying it's like not being in the Yellow Pages. I mean, you have to have your business registered with Google Local if you want to get local clients. It's just it's more important than having a website. It's more important than social media. You have to register. You just got to do it. And I think that there's all the fun stuff you can do to be visible, and then there's the work that it gives you a headache kind of to think of. It's the hard stuff to be visible, and I think a lot of people avoid that stuff. It's homework. Everyone wants to procrastinate doing their homework, right? So
Stephan?
So I think, why do we need more visibility? And it really comes down to why wouldn't you? You run a great business. You know what you're doing. You treat your customers right. You got a great product. Why wouldn't you? You have to compete for attention, and actually that's a big part of it. We live in kind of an attention economy right now, where there's so much coming across our streams, our plates. We're just inundated with things every day, and if you aren't, one of those people, it's like I'd rather quality over quantity, but there is that balance. There is that, you have to at least play some of the game and, try and bring some of that attention your way. The techniques and tactics that you use are going to change. They change every day around here, especially on social media, but also in local search and search in general, even in display advertising, offline. The techniques always change, but the fundamentals are never going to change, guys. So especially if you have a very good business fundamentally, people need to know about it, and so your job now is to find ways that work today and might work tomorrow with those core messages, and get your name out there and start connecting with people.
Yeah, I like what you had to say. I'm glad you brought this up about there's this tension and fine line between quality and quantity, and of course it goes without saying that what you're putting out into the world about your business needs to be quality. It needs to be useful and valuable for the people that you want to attract. And a lot of people say, oh, it's, quantity doesn't matter. It's only the quality. But I disagree. You need to have people following you. You need to have people who are paying attention to you, because without that, who's going to know about you, really?
Right.
At least that's my opinion, and it doesn't mean to negate the quality. It doesn't mean just slam stuff out there no matter what it is. And I love what Guy Kawasaki says. He's like, there's two kinds of people, and he's been saying this for years. There's the ones who want more who want more followers, and the ones who are lying. I was like, yeah, of course we want more followers, because the thing is that people come and go, right?
Yeah.
And one of the things that has been really a standard for me is that if people can't find you online, then you don't exist. So it's just like going back to what you said, Laurie, about being on Google Local. People are looking online for the businesses they want, for the solutions to their problems. So we have to be found online.
Yeah.
Period.
I mean, it's that technology has evolved. I mean, it used to be okay that, and it was just as much of a pain to call the the yellow pages and get your image, your business listed, and to talk about the ads, and it was expensive. I mean, those things did not change. It's just now you have to do a lot of this online, because I can tell you, we take our phone book and throw it away. So if I'm going to find your business, it needs to be online. And I think that even more people want to research. So I want to know a little bit more about you than maybe my parents did when they were looking at a business. I want to see more about you, because that builds trust. If I don't think that you're online and you don't have your business online, and I can't find you, then to me, I don't know if I should hire you. I don't know if I can trust you.
Exactly. So Stephan, you're a strategy guy, and so how should we look at planning for the next year? I mean, it's in 20 days, if you can believe that. We're going to be celebrating the new year, and that's kind of a scary thought when I had to count it out this morning. I was like, how many days is it until the new year? But what can we take from what we've already been doing in the last few months, let's say, and take it into 2015? What should we be looking at?
Well, for one thing, I think we all should have been doing this probably 3-4 months ago, but it is what it is. I'm guilty as charged, right? Can't save for this, make this rush at the last minute. But I mean, it's think of your goals. Start at the end. Look at it that way, right? Let's start at the end. What do I want to accomplish by next year? And a lot of people always, they do this, right? This is what we all do at the end of the year. We say, where am I? How far have I come? What do I want to accomplish next year? But don't be, dial that in. Dial it in to like, I need 5 new clients, or I need, I want to have a, for some of your community members, Laurie, I want to have a product line. Well, then start working backwards. What do I have to do to get to that point? And then you'll be able to really hone in on things that are going to make the most sense to reach those goals. If you don't start at the end, like even market research, you're supposed to start with an idea, like this is what I expect to happen. And then you work backwards. You create your questions, you create the data and things like that. And then you figure out what's the best way to ask those questions out in your audience, whether it's focus group surveys, whatever. And then, then you come forward. You take all that information and you see whether or not you were right, and you make your decisions. You kind of evaluate it that way. So, nothing's different than for your business. It's the same concept. Where do I want to go, and then how do I get there, and what's the most, what steps do I have to take, and then where's the most bang for my buck as far as energy goes. And then you get in. That's where you get into all the things. Are Facebook ads making the most sense for me? Does it make sense to blog? Does it make sense to get on Instagram, which we were talking about beforehand? Once you can start to establish those channels, now you can say, all right, I can fill in these gaps myself, or I got to go find somebody to help. So that was kind of a roundabout answer, but that's what I would do.
No, I think it's important to know where you want to go. So let's say your goal is to write a book for next year, or have a book published in the next year. Then you also need to look at, okay, when do I start need to be building my audience? And just like a product line, you need an audience for the product line, right? So in a lot of ways, we have to be doing things on two tracks at the same time. And it's another thing that we were talking about earlier is, how do you decide what you're going to do and what you need to outsource? Any tips around that?
There's also this part, I want to write a book. Well, that's great. What does writing a book do for you? What does it get you? Money? Okay, fine. Branding? That's fine too.
I mean, a lot of times people do those things for ego, and then it's not... it doesn't actually benefit them financially, but then it might have another payoff. You have to figure out, what is it going to do for me? And sometimes you can get sucked into stuff. I mean, you can have someone ask you to do this trip, or you can have someone ask you to do a training course, and you can get really sucked into it, and then you're not spending time doing other things that might have been more on your goals. So having those long-term goals and really, focusing and dialing in, acting with intention, that helps.
Definitely the attention. Here's a comment from Keith, and I think it's a good segue, is, I'm still conflicted on where I should be found online. Obviously my website, Google Local, and then trying to figure out where my time is best spent. It's hard. Any...
Well, I think it's different for everyone. So it depends on where his customers are, he's the builder.
Yes,
okay,
so all right.
Okay, I can do this. He is a builder, so his customers are going to be, people who want to buy a house locally in this area, or if he builds wherever he builds locally. So I would probably be, connecting with the local other businesses that will be the same kinds of businesses. Where are the people going that are buying a house right now? Are they going to the local home shows? Are they going to the local golf course? I mean, is there an event at the local golf course? It's getting to know these local resources that are going to come back to you, and getting to know them online also. These are places that have online presences as well, and they want to get to know and want to share your audience, and they want to talk about the stuff you're talking about, because they can't talk about golf courses 24/7 or Mercedes dealerships 24/7. So finding like-minded businesses in your own community online, and building a really solid, in this case, it doesn't have to be 1 billion followers, but it has to be the right local followers. Are you following the local television stations? Are you following your local media? So that they might come out and you get to know them, and then they're going to report about your new project, favorably, because you built a great relationship. And for me, it would be probably Twitter. It would probably be Instagram, because as the progress pics, and Facebook. People love looking at houses. It's aspirational. They love the idea of a new home, and I mean, who doesn't want to see stuff like that? So
right.
Sharing what to look for. I mean, how many people have gotten into horror stories about buying a brand new house, and they had so many things wrong with it. Talk about this stuff and share about why yours would be better and what to look for. Just a tip, what to look for. How not to get into those danger spots. I mean, there's a million.
Keith is getting some good coaching here.
I can do it.
You can also do that on House.
Yeah.
Right? That's Porch. A place totally aimed for that.
There's Porch. There's a bunch of social media networks that are great for that.
Yeah, and there's another little takeaway, I guess, right? There are industry-specific places, whether and even down to local. I mean, you could become a path writer. You could, or not patch. You could say, hey, do I have a local patch? Let me start writing for them, right? And then that's more. Just more local press, which especially for hyper-local business like a builder, you need that, right?
Right.
And I would also extend what you're doing, at least into a network like a realtor network. Try and find people. There's some great Google Plus communities for realtors too. So try and network with them, so that if any of those people know someone who is going to be moving into your neck of the woods, they can make that recommendation because they trust you and they know who you are. Plus, there's that that extended network component, which it's that's fluctuating in Google search and things like that. We get it, but it's still from a person-to-person standpoint, you still have this element of, okay, yeah, I know a guy, and I know a guy over in your neck of the woods who would be a perfect fit for, or you should at least just go check them out.
Right.
But Denise is right that you have to have like that double life kind of where you're like you have your intention to get your customers, but then you also want to get to know other builders so you can find out oh, that plywood is a problem this month, and getting to know your peers, and communities are great. Message boards are great for that, where you're sharing information and getting to know other people in your industry.
Right. And one of the things that I think can be applied across industries that you've both just brought up is that you've got to connect online and offline.
That's right.
The visibility is not just about online visibility, even though that's where my gig is all about online. But if you have any kind of offline business, or even as an online business owner, getting the visibility outside of the internet is going to be helpful too. So, for example, I often recommend, and I do it myself, is attend at least a couple of conferences every year. For me, that's going offline because I can meet people in person, and then I can pull that into online visibility as well by sharing those events.
Oh, absolutely.
So that gets kind of crazy there too, but
it's huge. I do trade shows a couple of times a year myself, and you follow the hashtag, you're linking your business to the bigger business, so all of those local followers that are following you, okay, now I'm seeing this guy is in the know because he's going to the industry conference, he's getting the up-to-date information, he's linking his business name with the trade show, with all of these different brands that I know, so he seems bigger, more important, plus you're making those real-life connections that really solidify. You're making deals. I mean, you probably can find better pricing. You can probably find new materials you never knew about. It's an education thing. It's linking. And
right.
I can talk to people that have, before social media and afterwards, they love going to shows so much more because they know people. Instead of going and talking to a bunch of salespeople, now they have 100 people they know, and it's like a family reunion. So.
Right. They're going in. They're hooking up with their friends.
Yeah.
We've already broken down the barriers, and then you can take those offline connections back online and continue the relationship.
You feel like family, honestly.
Which actually, yeah, and then that expands to everybody's audiences too, because now you're taking pictures with each other, and I think that also adds an element that's this is real, So anytime you can do something in real life that you started online and then bring it back online, then all those people who are in your audience are like, wow, this is this wasn't just a marketing agency, or this is a real person behind this behind this brand here that I've been following, or brand, or even personality,
Right.
And I think that just makes it each person's respective audience, I think, just can dial into you even more. And I think you just become that much more trustworthy and authoritative for them.
I was actually wondering this, Denise, because you train people and you talk to them about their online presence, and I don't do that. I just do it for myself, for my own community. But I wonder sometimes, and I notice that some people, they'll hire an intern or something, and then that intern, and I do think you should outsource a lot of the scheduling and stuff like that, but I do think you need to have your hands in there because you should be building the relationship, not an intern. I can't tell you people I know that have had an intern build their Facebook up, and then they got mad and they left and they took the passwords, and now they don't have a Facebook presence anymore. So you definitely, don't you think the owner needs to be involved a little bit?
I do. I feel pretty strong about that if you are outsourcing your voice, basically, it's not your voice anymore. there's got to be some connection. It's not necessarily that it needs to be all the time, every single thing. So, for example, if one way that you're maintaining your presence is by sharing content, so you're curating other people's content. Well, other people can do that for you. But from time to time, you need to be popping in there to comment with people, thank people, talk to people, shout out to people, give your take on it, and that is essential because people want to know who you are. And they don't want to meet somebody and go, well, you don't sound anything like that person that was on, Facebook. You're totally different. You're much nicer, or whatever. So you're totally right on, Laurie. In my opinion, there's got to be some connection because you're the one building the relationship. If your intern has built the relationship, what's going to happen when you meet that person? You don't know who they are, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a big takeaway there, especially if you're, even if you're a little bit larger business who's looking at, bringing on staff or an agency or whatever to manage some of your presence, or regardless where it is, you definitely want to spend a lot of time with them on brand voice. I mean, a lot. We had a great discussion with someone from T-Mobile back in April, I guess, and we were talking about that because they have. Well, at least they had, I don't remember, but they have a lot of, very interesting things going on with some of their executive leadership. So there were a bunch of discussions about how do we handle that and, how do we make sure that so we talked about brand voice and we talked about, that element of it. And it was really interesting, a great discussion. But it's so true. I mean, you always hear about the bad stuff, right? You always hear when somebody hands over the keys and, it gets botched. Well, mistakes happen, but if you spend enough time on this, ahead of time, and you're constantly involved, which I think is what both of you guys are really hammering home, and I totally agree. If you're involved and you don't just say, oh yeah, somebody's got this, they're representing you and your brand. You have to be involved in some respect, and engaging is an easy way to do it because you can see firsthand what the response is to some of the things that you had somebody else post for you.
Yeah.
Talk to them about that afterwards and make adjustments.
I totally understand that a large corporation is going to have people working and doing their social, and it could be a PR agency, it could be someone from the company. But it's nice to know who those people are too. Like, look how Godaddy does here on Google Plus, and the people that are on there, and the people who are managing the page, and they become, the corporation then becomes people. Which is actually a great thing because people want to buy from people. So
exactly.
It doesn't hurt your corporation to have the person behind the corporate logo be a real person and act like a real person.
And I think that's an excellent point, is that if you do have employees, many of the people in my world are solo or maybe have one or two employees, but if you do have employees or a team, they should be identified as who they are versus that they're not you.
Yes.
They're not you, the owner. You're like trying to be you, because a lot of people do hire ghostwriters for their social media, and I think that's a dicey path to walk on unless there has been a very, very clear conversation, as Stephan said, about the brand voice.
Yeah, and I think that's when we get into this everyone's so overwhelmed. See, they've got so many social media networks. They're doing their real job. They don't want to. They don't want to add these 3 hours to their day. So, how can they, number one, find tools that make it faster and easier so they can schedule stuff out, and number two, how can they outsource what they don't need to necessarily be babysitting, but still be present and focus on the networks that matter to them, because you can't do no one can do it. I don't do everything. I'm not on every single social media, even though it looks like I am, because I have a lot. I'm not really on every single social media network, and I can't do it all. And I schedule out what I can, and then I'm there. I have this rule that I'm like, 50% of what I do is scheduled, and then I'm in person. I respond to people when they write to me. 50% of mine, 25% of it is 50% is scheduled, 25% is me personally just talking to them, and then 25% is promoting someone else besides myself, so I'm not always talking about myself. Because I want it to be about other people, and not just about myself, and not just about interior design community 24/7. You know,
Right.
I'm a real person. So,
Right.
you know, if you set it up that way and it's all scheduled, it doesn't have to take over your life.
Stephan, how do you simplify or organize because you've got a very active presence on the web as well. So what are your tips for simplifying and making it work?
Listen to people like yourselves and try to actually take the advice.
Please.
I'm not so good at the time management stuff. I will freely admit it. You know, but it also comes with just trying to prioritize things. Hey, you know what? I've had very good success by being very present. I mean, that's done well for me. So I feel like to some extent, if I back off of that too much, I'll see that dip. So but here's the thing, I know that. So when I know that I have something, I mean, this is going to sound cheesy, but if I know I have something, like I just launched a web series yesterday, I'm definitely going to be very present in around, right? Because more top of mind. I mean, the more top of mind I am, the more engaging I am, the more people are going to remember, hey, I got something going on. And I don't follow that up with promotional posts or private messages or anything. It's just, I'm out there being me, but I'm active. So it's really just finding the time. And hey, if I were a company, okay, and we had something promotional going, an event or whatever, we would organize. I mean, you'd have some planning meetings. You would organize probably a big spreadsheet of things that need to get done. And part of everybody's job would be spending time responding and spending time engaging, because the whole show is all about visibility. You can't be visible if you're not there. Like, there was an old saying back in the beginning of the internet, your website is like an island. You have to tell people that you exist, just like you said in the beginning, Denise. So you can't tell people that you exist if you just sit there. You at least have to do advertising, or you have to go out there and find people and discussions and whatnot to be a part of and show your face. I mean, if you're not going to do that, what are you going to expect is going to happen, Yeah,
but that's why I love what you do, Stephan, for people, because I think that it is so overwhelming. And if you're going to do it, you have to do it well. So, I know people who got onto Facebook and they started a Facebook page, and then they don't really know how to run it. They didn't read up all about the tips and tricks and what you should do, and they need a professional that knows, they know what they want to say, but they can spend the time to make a comment or to show you something, but they can't spend the time to figure out when it should go, what time is going to reach the maximum audience, how to get it further. Those are things that's when you really should have someone come in and maybe do an evaluation, show you where you need to put your content when, and how to make that work for them, because being scheduled really does help people. I mean, it takes that off their mind. They don't have to worry about doing that plus doing their actual job, which is to run their business. So,
So Laurie, what do you use for scheduling? And then Stephan, you step in with that.
If I'm going to do anything, it's going to be scheduled. So it has to have a tool to schedule it. So I got into Instagram because they have Schedulegram now, and you can manage 5 accounts, I think. I use Friends Plus Me, which is a Google Plus app. Anything you have on Google Plus can go to your social networks. I use Hootsuite. I use on my blog CoSchedule, which is awesome. You can actually work with a team and schedule social media posts as well as your blog going out, so that you have your blog can go out many times, to different social networks. I really focus on the pictures and on the message, and make sure I have enough posts. Every network is different. So on Twitter, a post is only really live for, I think they said 10 minutes. So I might do more on Twitter. Yeah, I might do more on Twitter, but then I'll do less on Facebook, because I don't want to have 30 messages a day going out on Facebook, or 10 or whatever. Pinterest, I hit more often. I have Viral Tag, and I have that Tailwind app.
Okay.
So I'm big about apps.
Yeah, well, that's why they've been developed, right? To help us and save us time. So you've got a lot of different scheduling tools that you're using. Now, in terms of the visuals, because of course you have a very visual business, interior design, I mean, you can't get much more visual than that. Do you create your own images or do you outsource that as well?
Well, I actually own customized. I started this whole thing because I own customized walls, and so we're graphic artists. We do custom printed wallpaper and murals, but we work with a lot of interior designers, and we're in the interior design business. And so I create a lot of the images that I do I create everything that is on my blog and all the images that I do for my own social media. But images for the community are pulled from our community. So if someone posted on our community, we'll share it with their information and say, go back here, this is a great member, this is what they're doing. It's all about our members and our community there.
Cool. So Stephan, how do you manage?
One app. I use SproutSocial. I've been a long time user of theirs, big fan. Grandfathered one of the earlier plans, which is a beautiful thing. That's it, and everything else is just in the stream for me. Now, would that change as I start getting more, as I start expanding? Maybe. I'm actually not sure. I mean, personally, I still like the idea of being in the stream. That's personal preference. We talked to Rob Zaleski from Marketing Profs yesterday, and he said the exact same thing. He's like, I'd rather be in the stream. So he manages social media for all of Marketing Profs except for the Marketing Profs Twitter account, which is Ann Handley, so all the other ones. But anyway, he's got a tab open for every single one of them, and he just goes in and he does his thing. So. I'm more of that kind of guy. The only problem with that is that it's very much like squirrel, kind of moment, because everywhere you look, you see something light up, or there's another notification or a ding or something, and you're like, oh, let me just go check that. So it helps. I think sometimes it helps to have one place where you can go and let all that stuff just kind of cook, and then you can go check it. But yeah, as far as scheduling, that's I mean. That's all I use is Sprout. The cool thing I like about it, I use it more for like if I'm going to send something to Twitter and Facebook at the same time. That's really about it. And that's another thing that me personally, I prefer to customize each of my messages for that platform. So it takes a lot of time. And so as from a scalability standpoint there, what I may end up doing again as I start to put more things into place for some of the projects I'm working on, it'll be things like spreadsheets, and Smartsheet is a new app I discovered, which is really, really cool. It lets people collaborate in like a big spreadsheet format, but you can put images, you can put attachments to the cells and stuff. It's really neat. So I can see that being a really useful tool to create like a full-blown content marketing schedule for myself with all of the messaging and the links and everything. So for me, if I could do that, then some of it I could delegate, or some of it I could just say, all right, set a reminder on my phone that it's time to go do some posting and go do it. But this is what I do for a living, though. You're going to have to, businesses who don't have that function are going to have to figure out, how to make that part of it work, the execution part.
Yeah, and I think for businesses where it's not their business, because it's my business too, so I'm in and out of the stream all day long, and just kind of popping in to see what's going on. But for businesses where it's not, I think that scheduling is something that needs to happen, because especially things like blog posts. I mean, you can push stuff out that isn't necessarily conversational and then go back to it. In my opinion, you can go back to it and get into the conversation. You don't want to get back to it 3 weeks later, but
it's not reaching your audience when it's convenient for them, not when it's convenient for you. Right. And hitting them multiple times. I mean, depending on the network that you're on, like if you're on Twitter, you want to post several times because people are only on for maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes, and then they're off. And so you're posting at the times when your audience can absorb that information, and multiple times, because every time you're on social media, someone new is looking at it. And it's the same thing if you'd spent this time to do a blog post. I know people who do a blog post and then they send it out once. And to me, that's nuts. I mean, you just worked really hard on this blog post that should go out, a couple times a day, a couple times tomorrow, next week, the month later, 2 months later, because it's still really good information and you spend a lot of time gathering it, and it should have people coming back and back and back to your website, and they do. I mean, I have people retweeting stuff that I did a year ago all the time.
Yeah.
Or sharing something or liking something even on here on Google Plus that I did a year ago. So it lives there, and you want to make sure you're just constantly pushing it out. The factory.
Okay, so let's look at 2015. If we are just starting right now to think about what we're doing for the next year in terms of our visibility strategies, what would you recommend for focusing on getting started? Is there something that you see is more important to focus on than other things?
Yeah.
Give me your thoughts about that.
I think the first thing is local listing. If you have a local business and you're really trying to get local customers, a local listing is pretty much the first thing you should do. It's kind of how you're going to get found. But the next thing I think they should do is talk to someone like the two of you, because every platform is different and they have different customers. Like we just talked about Instagram and how it's a younger audience, but you're starting to see parents come on, so because they want to watch their kids, and so it's more of an investment maybe in the future rather than something that might pay off today. It's a long-term strategy. So what do they need to do today? They need to talk to someone like you so they can find out what they need to do today. And every business is different, and they're going to get different traction on a different platform than someone else. So having someone evaluate and give you a plan that you can stick to, and it is hugely important.
Thank you. Okay, Stephan, what's your recommendation for moving into 2015?
Yeah, I kind of think Laurie hit it right on the nose there. The only thing I would add is, well, I'll just give you my own version of it, whatever.
Yeah, please do.
I would say take stock of where you are, like take stock of everything. So do you have account ownership for your Google page? Do you have account ownership for your Facebook? Please, 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 for the love of God, take stock of all that. Have all of it, in your control for your business. Because the thing you need to do really, and now is a perfect time to do it. You got to set yourself up in a way where you're in a position where you can delegate something, or you can bring in an agency, and you don't end up messing yourself up down the road where somebody kind of takes the reins and it doesn't go as planned, and then you are in this rock and a hard place situation where you got to figure out how to pull the reins back. So definitely take stock of everything that's out there. Make sure all of your branding is consistent. Like Laurie said, with the local part of it, your NAP, which is name, address, phone number. Go Moz has if you go to Moz Local, which I think it's moz.com/local, but just go on their website. They have a really cool tool to check your listing, your business name of your business in a across the board. I think it's a free tool where you can check a lot of the listings, but if you want to make updates, I believe there's a small fee for it. But it's a nice way to go see how you're being represented on the internet across the board. And then again, when you have control of all that, you can start to make those changes. By being in that position as well, you also have the opportunity to control your destiny. I mean, I know I'm saying the same thing again, but the idea is, if something were to become more popular than another, well, you are in a position to revert those resources, and you're in a position, you're empowered to follow the leads of the people that are out there in the trenches every day, saying, okay, this is the new thing, and so that would be my huge tip for now. And then, like Laurie said, have a goal, have a purpose. Start to think about the things that are going to make you the most money, or at least achieve your goals. Again, go back to our book example before, like, oh, I want to write a book. What does the book get me? And so if the idea is branding, well, what does the branding get me? And like, take that as far as you can, until you get to something you can actually say, oh, all right, here we go. Now I can start pulling this back. And maybe I had one idea to accomplish that goal. Maybe there's like 10 other ways that I can do it too, and maybe one of them's better. So you might have had one idea, like to write a book, which you thought would get you to this spot. Now maybe it's speaking. Who knows? But the point is to think all this through. This is the time to do it. Just think it all through. Have a plan. and kind of get your house in order. I think that's the big advice for now.
Yeah. Well, totally love what you both said, and I'm going to build on the get your house in order piece here, and nod to the builders out there too. Is that you really have to make sure that your foundation is in place, because what I find speaking with people quite frequently is that they just want to go on Facebook, or they just want to be doing Twitter, but there's no foundation. So this goes back to the goal too, but where's your home base? You don't own Twitter and Facebook and Instagram. They are not your that's not your personal real estate. So you need to have your home base, and that's a website, a blog site, whatever it is. I of course think I'm very biased. It should be a blog site, and that you should be creating your content on your own site, on your own real estate first. But that's like the essential piece there that flows from your goals, of course, what that's all going to be like, and then you need to be working on how are you going to bring people there? How do you bring people home? And then how do you connect with them and get them, interested in what you're doing, and then want to engage with you in a business relationship? I mean, that's kind of like the flow. It's a very big overview up there, but that foundation piece has to be taken care of. And so, following what Stephan is saying and what Laurie is saying, you got to get the house in order, and you got to know where you are right now so that you can fix, optimize, leverage where you want to go.
I believe that's so true. I mean, I tell the designers too, because I look at people, I would not buy from someone that didn't have a website. I don't think I would, because I think I like to read reviews. I like to see if I were buying, especially things like building or interior design, if their site looks like it was made, 10 years ago, how could I trust that they're going to give me anything updated or good now? If your site looks like if you own a restaurant and your site looks like it's, from 10 years ago, I'm going to think that you're going there, it's going to be one of those places that it's a hole in the wall, looks, you know what I'm saying? It's just, people perceive you how your online presence looks. Does it look modern? Does it look cool? Does it look interesting? That tells people about you.
Right.
Well, I think you go back to that attention economy issue, and you have maybe one chance, maybe a split second, whatever. You have that first impression, or even continued impressions. When you're making these impressions on people, I mean, what is it? How are they perceiving you? And so Laurie's right on the money there. But I think it's amplified today, because attention is it's a currency. It's something that we are vying for way more than ever. So you really do have to put your best foot forward. I've been thinking about this myself, like the whole shoemakers' children go barefoot thing, which is so common for web designers. It doesn't fly, and it really shouldn't fly anymore. We should actually be our biggest clients and our absolute best clients. I've made a commitment to myself internally to do that for the next, especially coming into this year. But before I kind of realized this, I'm like, wow, yeah, somebody's going to come, unless they're following me on social and they understand, they get a handle of who I am. If all of a sudden they come out of the blue and find my website, there's a very different perception of me and what we can do. And so I think that's it's a really, really important thing that speaks to what you're saying, Laurie. So I would also, don't forget your email list, people. Don't get people on but don't just get them on your email list to have them on your email list. Get them on your email list, because today we are all about one-to-one conversations. Everything we're doing is one-to-one, and it isn't the broadcast media and things like that. They're all transitioning into these one-on-one interactions. And even if you send a blast, I shouldn't have said that word, but even if you send an email campaign out to 20,000 people, you're getting replies. They're getting one email. These are one-on-one conversations you should be having with people. So dial in to how you're doing your marketing, so that when you do everything you do is all about how you and I can connect, and put yourself in a position to be able to do that too. Like, don't start engaging on things and start implementing ideas if you're not going to be able to support that. So because that's where you're going to get the biggest bang for your buck with this stuff.
Like that business that got really big on MySpace, and now where is it? I mean, it's just like anything else. I mean, we're all on Google Plus. So we've heard a million rumors of what could happen on Google Plus. You don't have the emails. How are you going to stay in touch with any of the people you met?
Yeah, Stephan, I was wondering and hoping that you were going to bring in the email thing because email, as you said, it's a one-to-one communication. That email going into the inbox is going directly to that one person. There's no distractions. There's no status updates flying by and tweets flying by and pictures flying by. It's just you and that email. So that's actually one of the highest forms of visibility, is having a great email campaign. So that's I would say that's got to be a goal for most business owners, is to be building that list so that you can have that one-to-one conversation. So I'm glad you brought that up, Stephan. Thank you. So we're at 45 after the hour, so I know I've gone, on and on like I typically do. So we've been talking a lot about foundational stuff, and that's so important. And I'm so glad that we had this part of the conversation. So let's just switch really quickly to the last question. Let's go for a tactical question, okay? Because people love tactics. And so thinking about what's coming up in the new year, what you're doing, what's been successful for you in your business and with your clients, what would you say your number one visibility tip or tactic would be for 2015 that people should consider?
I already kind of covered it with schedule. I think it's having that plan and planning it out for the whole month, so that it's not something you can sit down on a Saturday. It is work. I mean, you sit down and you figure out what you're going to talk about in your blog. You assign different social media that can go to it. You create some images. You do all of this stuff, and then you schedule it out so that it comes out many, many times through the month. And you've got it all done. And at the end of that exhausting, boring data entry day, you don't have to think about it other than just to play like you normally like to do, to go on to Facebook and chat with people, or to go on to Twitter and chat with people. You can have those great conversations that you have, but you've got to get the work where you're actually asking them to come back to you. And that, to me, is the scheduling part. Definitely look into scheduling tools. Okay, great. Stephan.
All right. So my number one tactic, I guess, tactic or technique would be, all right, I'm going to actually, this one's not mine. I read this, I think, last week, I think. Peck Fitzpatrick wrote a great blog about this, and it's something that I've been working on myself, so I'm going to adopt it with a hat tip to her, and brand yourself. Get all of your branding in order. All right, Denise, you are amazing at this, right? If you look in the event photos, she's got like these little Polaroid kind of things with, Denise's branding is in phenomenal shape. So when she wants to create a quick picture, boom, it's done like that. And so if you have those templates, so there's my tip, right? Invest in those templates. I mean, even if you go to low-cost ways to get those things done, have them all set up. 3 or 4 different sizes, all of your branding colors. It kind of goes back to getting that house in order. But when you have all that set up, oh my God, it's so easy to just say, oh, I need a picture. Boom, here we go. Here's all my branding. Everything looks very consistent, and as a result, your visibility online. I mean, this is branding. People have been doing this hundreds of years. The presence you have online now, it's just gonna be that much stronger and that much more solid. And because we're going so much more into visual media these days, having that consistency is really important. I mean, I'm one of the last guys who wants to admit it, but because I like writing a lot more than I do all this visual stuff. But hey, it's important, so there you go. I've been converted. Now I'm passing that along to you guys.
Okay, you're converted, that you're going to become a more visual guy. And that's what I've been thinking about a lot too, is that what I've noticed is what's working over the last 6 months or so, and what I don't see, ending anytime soon, is this whole visual marketing piece. So you really have to think about how can you add a visual element to just about everything you do. especially when it's associated with your unique content. So, there's the curation part where you share other people's content. I don't worry about too much about, their visual pieces. I let what they've created, speak for them. But if it's my thing, my article, my post, my status update, I have to think about, and I encourage you to, is how can I represent this in some way visually, whether it's with a quote, a visual quote, whether it's with a picture, and take lots of pictures. If you've got a smartphone, you've got the ability to create all of your own images. You can take pictures of so many things. And I mean, I take pictures of everything. Most of them no one will ever see. But every once in a while, that's that good picture that's going to be a good background behind a quote or a tip or something. So you've got to really focus on that more and more these days. So that is that's my tip. Now to close it out, Stephan, where can people find you online? Get more information from you.
Find me at stephanhove.com. I've talked about personal branding. I finally got this puppy up. And thanks to Susan Finch, who hooked me up with, with all of these branding elements, right? She's got a little template for me for my testimonials, and I can create graphics out of it to kind of make my life so much easier. So yeah, stephanhove.com has some good information about me, I'm kind of using it as a kind of a hub. But I mean, here on Google Plus is really where it's definitely my social home. Love hanging out and interacting with people on, on the stuff that I share. So come say hi. And otherwise, that's about it. Okay,
Laurie, where's the best place for people to hook up with you?
I pretty much claimed interior design community and customized walls everywhere. So anywhere you see interior design community or customized walls, it's usually me, or one of the people on our team. But usually it's me. So find me everywhere.
So whether your preferred platform is Pinterest, Instagram, Facebook, Twitter.
I like them all for different reasons. So I'm on Facebook, I'm on Google Plus, I'm on Instagram, Pinterest. You talk to me more probably on Google Plus or Facebook, but you'll definitely see me everywhere.
Okay, excellent. Thank you so much for being here with me today, and thank you to all of you out in HOA land and who will be watching in the future, the replay. Thank you for being here today, and you can get advance notice of future Adventures in Visibility at adventuresinvisibility.com, and you can also now get it. All adventures are available as podcasts. So you can take it on the go with you, whether you prefer iTunes, Stitcher, or SoundCloud. It's there. You can go to adventuresinvisibilitypodcast.com and subscribe any way you like. So thank you for being with me today. Thank you, Stephan and Laurie, for sharing your expertise. It's been wonderful having this conversation with you. I think we got into a more, much more detailed place here or foundational place, and I think that's where people need to be. So thank you so much for sharing that with me today.
Thanks for having me.
Thanks, yeah.
As always.
Have an adventurous day, everyone. Take care.
Thanks.